Hey guys, Jessica here. So today we're going to talk about a topic that is a really sensitive topic, but we're going to talk about what term insufficient glandular tissue means. So low supply moms often come in and they're saying that they were diagnosed with insufficient glandular tissue, which gets shortened to IGT. And IGT means that there is literally a lack of glandular tissue that developed in the breast, which is a reason that we would not be able to generate a full supply. But IGT is often misunderstood and is something that this is a diagnosis of exclusion. So you need to understand exactly what this term means so that you can understand, does it actually apply to your situation? Because once we say that a breast has IGT, what we mean is that there isn't anything we can do to ever get the supply to a full supply. It's never going to happen because there is a lack of the necessary glandular tissue. So glandular tissue, we're going to use these balloons to mimic it. So we're going to call this a healthy breast. This is a normal developed breast. These are the milk making sacs. What this is it's glandular tissue. This acts both as a storage reservoir and as a milk synthesis factory. So inside of each of these sacs, there is the ability of the body to make and hold milk. We can't actually measure this. There is no test for this. There are doctors who will tell you there is. I've had some moms who were like, oh, well, they did an ultrasound and found I had no glandular tissue. But then after we correct all the issues, they're pumping 6 to 8 ounces at a time. So like clearly it was there. We weren't able to add it. We cannot manually manipulate this. This is developed by your hormones. It's developed every menstrual cycle. It's developed during puberty. It's developed during the pregnancy. With each baby, we should actually develop more mammary tissue. But we can't manipulate that. Your body either makes it or it doesn't. So this is a healthy breast. This is when we talk about your letdown reflex, we're actually talking about these milk making sacs are being squeezed. So they're being squeezed and the milk rushes from inside of it out to the outside of the body. This is insufficient glandular tissue. This is a breast that did not develop as it's supposed to. There was a hormonal disruption either during puberty, during pregnancy, it could be in utero. We don't actually know when this happens. What we do know is that what this means is that this mom, it doesn't matter if this mom does everything right. This mom can do all the stimulation. We can get the hormones in check. We can do everything we can. And we're always going to have a low supply because there's a lack of glandular tissue. But we can have low supply with normal glandular tissue. And this is where I get really frustrated, both as a provider and as a mom who is diagnosed with IGT and told that I had IGT with my first two babies. And that heavily influenced how I handled it. Because if I didn't have the equipment, this is hardware. If you don't have the hardware, it doesn't matter what you do, you cannot produce the full supply. There isn't, I don't want to say there's no hope, but there also is, there's no hope of that goal of exclusive breastfeeding because the tissue doesn't exist. What I'm often seeing in my practice and in my personal experience is that it's not the glandular tissue that failed to develop. It's the hormones that didn't develop correctly. It's the thyroid issues. It's the insulin resistance. And it's often low-level subclinical issues, multiple of them. It's the mom dealing with inflammation. So this tissue, it doesn't matter that this tissue exists because if we can only use this to half capacity, it doesn't matter what the tissue is if it's being impeded. This tissue and this tissue could make the same amount of milk if this mom is getting appropriate, efficient stimulation and this mom is not getting appropriate stimulation. If this mom has her thyroid working correctly and this mom doesn't, they may both see the same low supply. But the cause is different because the mom can do everything right. We can get everything in check and we can't fix it. For this mom, there is still a chance that if we got everything right, we could fix it. And what I'm seeing is a lot of people who have functioning mammary tissue being told they have insufficient glandular tissue because the supply is not responding. And they're not doing lab work. They're not checking the franchises, or they're getting it wrong, or they're telling them that, the baby's nursing. Well, okay, is that baby nursing efficiently? So what we need to know is how can you? Because if there's no lab test and there's no imaging test, how can we tell? The only way we can tell is by something called storage capacity, which is the largest amount of milk that we see synthesized at one time. It doesn't matter if we went 8 hours, 12 hours, 24 hours between stimulation. If this breast can only hold half an ounce. Like if it is completely full to the max, it can only hold half an ounce. Then we're only going to see half an ounce of production ever. That's going to be the maximum production. And most times we're going to see less because the body does not typically want to fill up to the max all the time, because that actually puts the body at risk of mastitis. Because if these milk making cells get full, then they're going to leak the fluid into the surrounding tissue. Our body receives that as an invader and responds with inflammatory mastitis, which your body does not want. So we very rarely see the tissue working at full capacity. So one of the ways that we can tell whether a mom has IGT or not is to see what her storage capacity is. So what are we seeing, the pumped output or the weighted feeds done with a properly calibrated scale? What is the maximum amount? This is we either know that number or we don't. What I see a lot is moms who were told they have insufficient glandular tissue. They then, for whatever reason, do not empty the breast for an extended period of time. Whether they were sleeping, it was there, they were on vacation, they quit for a while. When they then go to pump, all of a sudden they get more than 3 ounces of milk. Now, 3 ounces of milk is where I consider IGT. I'm ruling out effectively IGT. Because if you had 3-ounce storage capacity, if your body was working at full capacity to utilize that structure, it could synthesize a full milk supply with 8 to 12 stimulations a day. So if we had everything else right, even 3 ounces of glandular tissue storage capacity could result in a full supply. Does it often? No, because I would say 3 ounces is probably borderline, but at 3 ounces, I can rule out that the issue is that you're missing the hardware. Then we know that the issue is that something is impeding the function of the existing tissue. And remember, IGT means the tissue doesn't exist. So if we can even once produce that result, then it's not a lack of hardware. That tissue exists and it could be utilized. Whereas with IGT, we'll still get, even after a long period of time, we'll never see that 3-ounce marker. So if you have less than 3 ounces, then I still consider IGT to be a possibility. And if you have more than 3 ounces, then I can pretty much rule out IGT and we can start looking at the other causes. Now, even if you have IGT, I don't use the same methods in my practice that a lot of lactation consultants do, because I find them to be highly offensive. As somebody who had to grapple with that realization that I did not have IGT and that I had taken actions that may have impeded my milk production, and maybe I didn't pursue lab work, I didn't do further research, I was told by trusted professionals I had IGT. So I made decisions based on what they said. I trusted them. That left me reeling, and it was really hard on my mental health there for a while to see that, my baby had slept through the night. I'd gotten up to pump. He had slept. I didn't mean to go that long. I had never seen more than, 2.5. I think we were maxing out right underneath 3. It was kind of questionable, but we never saw it. Well, I slept. I had a really good night's sleep, and all of a sudden I pumped 8 ounces. And I'm like, okay, well, that's bizarre, because I was told this is my situation. And what I found out is that this was my situation, but that I had thyroid issues and severe insulin resistance and that it was impeding the function. But because I had been diagnosed with IGT, nobody was looking for that. Everybody assumed I was doing everything right because I was. I was pumping, I was nursing. They thought the baby was effective, which, and it's kind of questionable now that I know more about oral function. Not quite sure my babies were very good at that. But this information was withheld and it wasn't given to me. And that's not the way I like to function in my practice. So when I'm working with a mom with low supply, I always want lab work. Diagnosis of IGT should be a diagnosis of exclusion. It should be, we got the hormones where they were supposed to be. The stimulation is where it was supposed to be. You've done everything you can and it's still not there. The reason that they're withholding some of this information, or there's misunderstanding, is that they think that IGT kind of gives moms the permission to stop. It's not my job to give moms permission to stop. Moms have the permission to stop because it's their choice. Moms can choose to do whatever they want to do with that information. If we do lab work and we're like, man, you have really advanced insulin resistance, this is impeding milk supply, they can say, well, you know what, I'm not interested in the medications that would take. I'm not interested in the lifestyle changes. That doesn't work for me. So then they don't have to take all these other actions. Or moms can say, hey, nursing and pumping 12 times a day minimum, it's too much for me. It's too much for my mental health. It's too much for my family. And they can back off. Will that change their milk? output? Absolutely. But that's the beauty of free choice. And I support free choice. But in order to make it free choice, I have to give moms that information. So if you've been diagnosed with IGT by a lactation consultant, by a doctor, stop and look and see, do you actually fit that mold? Have you ever seen that higher quantity of milk? Because if you have seen that higher quantity of milk, it came from someplace. It wasn't, there's not a magic milk fairy that just like deposited it in the baby's stomach or deposited it in the pump. If that milk was synthesized and created all at once, we know that you have the functioning tissue. Like that tissue could be utilized differently. Now, is it a guarantee? No, because there's lots of things, sometimes we can't access the medical care. Sometimes, the risks of the medications are too much. Sometimes the lifestyle changes are too much. There's definitely that capacity. But if you've been diagnosed with IGT, you deserve to know, like, do you actually fit that? And if you were diagnosed with IGT, if you've never seen that amount, did somebody do a full lab work panel? Have we done your thyroid? And when I say do we do your thyroid? Did we check more than TSH and free T4? Because I don't necessarily need to know what your thyroid was being signaled by the pituitary gland, which is TSH, or free T4 with the bio unavailable hormone. I need to know, is the hormone right so that you actually have utilizable hormone, which is your free T3. I need to know if you have thyroid antibodies. Is your thyroid being attacked? With insulin resistance, I need more than your A1C. A1C doesn't actually tell me a lot unless it is so high that it tells me there is an active disease process that's not being managed. We need different numbers. Has somebody done a full lab work panel for you? Are we confident we've addressed all those issues and you understand all of those potential issues? Because if not, calling it IGT isn't necessarily fair to you. If you have this diagnosis and you don't want to know more, you're not interested, I support you. I support every parent in making the choice for themselves. Breastfeeding is not perfect and it doesn't always work. And it's sometimes in a vacuum. Yes. Could we do something about it? Sure. But if it's not right for you to do further investigation or it's going to hurt your mental health, don't. We can feed your baby other ways. We can keep you mentally healthy other ways. But if you are somebody who has been diagnosed with IGT and you're listening to this and you're like, well, wait, no, I have seen that number. That can't be right. Then we've still got more work that we could potentially do. And if you're somebody who has been diagnosed and you're like, well, I've never seen more, but also there's all these other pieces that are missing in this assessment, reach out. I am always happy to help you. We do this assessment all the time. We recommend the lab work. We get the full history. We get you all the information. At the end of the day, you deserve to know why you have low supply because it's knowing why that helps to bring peace to the situation and helps to bring that informed choice onto how you want to handle it. I'm not sad now to know why I have low supply. I actually don't know that I would do anything differently with a future baby. It it is what it is. But I do think that not having that information and having a misdiagnosis was cruel. It was unhelpful and it left me resenting the care that I got. And I don't want to see that for other moms. So if you're struggling with this, please feel free to reach out and either I can help you or I will connect you with a colleague that can help you. And I hope that helps somebody and happy pumping.